Hi, good morning. Thank you all for being here. So this is who I am and this is what I do. I run a fabulous team of a couple hundred digital journalists worldwide for CNN. And I want to talk to you about what I think is a critical shift, not just for CNN, but for the entire industry. Good morning. So in the past, it was all about creating destinations, whether it was TV or whether it was online, and trying to get an audience to come to your destination. And the shift is that that can't be how it works anymore. Hi. CNN, and again, I would argue this for media at large, needs to go where audiences are. And I want to talk about this and dwell on this a little bit during this presentation. You have to give the audiences what they want, when they want it, and where they want it. It's not always about driving traffic back to your website or your mobile site. You have to be where they are. I'd like to give you a quick review of CNN's core platforms, and then I want to use a story, a recent breaking news story, as an example of something that we went out and reached our audiences instead of just publishing and asking people to come to us. This is our core platform. This is our CNN US domestic site. It's very large. It gets more than 100 million unique users a month. This is CNN International. It is run by Andrew DeMaria, our Vice President of International Digital, who's here in the audience today. You can get his autograph later. And this is CNN Money. This is our global business financial site. We've been expanding what we're doing in CNN Money. Here's our CNN Arabic site, run out of our fantastic team here in Dubai, along with Carolyn Faraj, our Vice President of Arabic Services. This is a new relaunch we did of CNN Espanol. And this is a relaunch we did of CNN Politics, preparing for the major story in the US of the presidential election next year. This is what CNN has on mobile. We're strong mobile worldwide. #1 iPhone news app and #2 iPad app. And here we are on Android. Here's some more of our mobile platforms. And then we recently have been launching on watches, whether it's Samsung or Apple Watch. So I'm showing you these platforms in part to explain and give you a little bit of background on what CNN Digital does, but also to illustrate the point that it's not just about publishing content on a website anymore. It's about being on multiple devices in multiple ways. So you can be wherever the audience needs you, in whatever form or format, on whatever device, anywhere in the world. It's a key piece of our strategy. This is an important slide because it talks about not necessarily devices and not necessarily CNN's platforms, but other people's platforms. So Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, social media, as you all know, is a huge part of how to reach and engage an audience. And CNN is the most followed and fanned social media platform in the world. A couple other products we have, just really quickly. We have CNN Go, which is a platform to reinvent TV as you think of it. You can get on your iPad, and it's a non-linear experience, if you will, for television. We kind of combine the best of what's happening on our digital sites with the live stream from our air. And this is Apple TV. We just recently launched on Apple TV. Again, illustrating the point that it's not just about being a destination. It's about having multiple tentacles to reach audiences in different ways, whether it's redefining TV, being on a watch, being on a variety of mobile devices, and being out and about on social, in addition to what now feels like the traditional old desktop site. So let me take a couple of minutes here and illustrate to you how this works in an actual breaking news story. The morning of March 24th, it was a morning in the US, we started getting word that there was a crash, a plane crash, in the Alps over France. This was some of our internal messaging. This was not seen to the audiences, just to confirm that there was a big story potentially brewing. Once we confirmed it, we started using social media immediately. That's one of our first steps. So this account that you see right here, CNN BRK, is the most popular, most followed news account on Twitter in the world. And so this is a very powerful thing. So we started letting our audiences know very quickly there appears to be a plane crash in the Alps. Subsequent tweets afterwards continued to tell the story as it developed. It looked like we had a real tragedy on our hands at this point. At the same time, we started using our alerting system to tell people on their mobile phones that we knew that there was a Germanwings jetliner that had crashed. While this is happening, the homepage teams in both London, Hong Kong, and Atlanta were working on updating the site, the traditional core site, with a series of images and developments as the story developed. This is something we really like as we talk about the importance of social media and going out and getting audiences and being where they are in their feeds, on their phones, on their computers. This is a feature we have on the site. It's a technology we use to bring what our teams on the ground are doing in social back onto our sites. So it's not just about being out on social. It's hugely important. It's about curating social back onto our sites. Part of our portfolio, as I mentioned earlier, is CNN Money. And we started looking at the financial angles. How does crash insurance work for plane victims? So again, started using different parts of the portfolio to try to tell this story. This is a video. We have an original video team at CNN, which might sound a little odd since CNN is a video company at its heart. But this team, in day 2 of this story, started getting together the plane crashes that have been happening in recent months. We pushed that out on social. We put that out on our homepages. We made sure that people who are asking the question, haven't there been a lot of plane crashes recently? The answer in some ways was yes, and we're going to take you through what's happened in the last year and a half or so. One of the things that we're most proud of, in addition to having a large social media footprint, is the connection that we can make between our audiences on social media and the television network. So there were a lot of questions we noticed that people wanted to ask around this crash. How, why, when, who, all of the basic questions. How safe is it to fly? These personal questions. So we decided to create a hashtag, and it was called Germanwings Queues for questions. And we put that out on Twitter, and then we created a conversation on our air where we brought experts to answer and opine on those questions on our air throughout the day on both CNN Domestic and CNN International TV. The other thing we did is we took some of the best of that conversation where we got those answers from experts, talking about some of the personal concerns, the safety concerns that people have around flying these days. We put that all together and aggregated that back into an article that was on our site that then we pushed out into social media, and then we talked about on air. And so we made that kind of a circle of trying to use all the platforms and engage audiences and reach out and get that out on CNN. Earlier this year, we launched on Snapchat. Who here knows what Snapchat is? Okay, yeah, just checking. I didn't know about the usage here in the Gulf. We were one of a handful of channels to launch on Snapchat. And it's not necessarily a breaking news platform, for those of you who know it. But we decided that day, given the gravity of this tragic story, that we needed to go ahead and do a breaking news update on our Snapchat platforms. This platform reaches, as some of you know, a younger demographic, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And again, we were going to those audiences where they are. These are not people who are necessarily turning on CNN TV to watch what's happening on our air. These are not necessarily people who are going to CNN.com on their mobile phone or at their desktop at work. But there are people who are checking Snapchat, and we could get the news to them where they were. These are just some examples of what we did on Facebook and some other social media platforms. And then as the story developed, as you all might remember in coming days, the news came out that this was deliberate, that the co-pilot intentionally crashed the plane, adding yet another tragic twist to a tragic story. And this is an illustration of what our homepages looked like where we went with a full bleed visual photography and a big headline to deal with that development. And then from there, we continue to push that story out across mobile and social in a variety of ways. So that's it. That's my main message today, is that for CNN, a big global news organization, and I would argue other news organizations, large and small, the challenge today is to reach audiences where they are and not assume that people are just going to come to you. That's not the world we're living in anymore. If you think about how we all use social and our phones and our devices, that's how people are consuming media these days as well. We see this stat come through in our traffic. Our traffic is still strong and it's good, but we see more off-platform usage and more usage coming from social media than we ever have, and we expect that to accelerate. It's a clear trend in the industry and a great opportunity for journalism and the business of media. That's it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have a question about advertising. How is the digital advertising for the online platforms that you have, and how is the consumer confidence in terms of consumer advertising?
Advertising is going very well. I see some of my former colleagues in the room, and there was a time not that long ago where the digital revenue model wasn't necessarily a strong one. We knew the audience was there, but we weren't sure if the business was there. For CNN, and as you've probably seen in other places throughout the industry, digital advertising is a real revenue generator. At CNN, one of the more, and again beyond, one of the more profitable ways, advertising formats that we use is the video ad. That gets one of the highest advertising rates, the highest CPMs of anything that we do on our sites. And then I will also tell you that when we do things like Snapchat, where we're re-editing and recrafting the stories that our teams are doing, we're also taking the opportunity to sell that on that platform as we reach that audience. That's a completely different sales proposition for somebody on our sales team to be able to say, yes, you can put some ads on CNN.com, and that's wonderful, please do that. But if you want to reach bespoke audiences in this demographic on this platform, we can help you with that too. I'm sorry? I can't hear you so well. Thank you. Some figures. No, I can't. And I can tell you that it's one of the reasons I can't, in addition to being asked not to publicly disclose those numbers, is because it's always changing. It's accelerating a lot. Other questions? Yes, in the back.
Hi, good morning. My question is the decision to go into social media platform as a news organization, especially in terms of Snapchat. Was that a huge learning curve, and how did you come about that and the process of getting onto a platform like that?
Yeah, thank you. Snapchat was a mind-blowing experience for us because we knew we couldn't just take what we had on our web and our mobile sites and copy it and put it on that platform. This is a different platform, and it has a different publishing system and a different way, a different user interface, which for people who are older than 18 can be very confusing, frankly. Snapchat does not have an easy user interface. But so we had to think about all of those things. We had to think about what time of day do we publish. We had to think about how do we do our story selection. We had found, by the way, that just because it was a young audience and just because we were on Snapchat doesn't mean that we can't do hard news. So that's one of the reasons why I like to use this example. We see that the audiences on Snapchat and the younger demographic in general cares deeply about breaking news, international news, foreign affairs, politics, a lot of the hard news topics. These are audiences that are engaged. I digress a little bit, but Snapchat, we definitely had to think about how do we craft stories a little bit differently for that platform? It's not enough to say, let's put the web on this platform. So we have a team of people every day, we publish in the afternoon, who craft and design stories for that platform. Does it mean we invented a digital?
Does that mean you invested in new and additional manpower, or did you kind of repurpose the existing team? Because this is, I think, a challenge news media organizations are facing, is you have an existing manpower, you have all these digital platforms, each of them have their unique format. So how do you kind of manage that in terms of manpower and cost effectiveness?
Yeah, you can't endlessly add to headcount as much as I would like to. We did invest in people for the social team that's a part of my team to help fuel that platform. Not immediately, though. So we had to make some tough decisions to say, again, going with the shift that's happening in the industry, are we going to prioritize people updating corners of the website over the ability to shape and craft stories from CNN to this demographic that we want and need to reach? So we had to make some choices. It might mean that someone else, some editors, spend a little bit less time on corners of the desktop site so they could spend more time on Snapchat. We had to balance that out.
Meredith, what's next? You talk about Snapchat, and I'm from CNN. It's incredibly exciting to have you here and to just hear about where we are and where we're going. What's next, and how do we make decisions about, right, we're going to go with Snapchat, but not with another platform?
Well, Becky Anderson, thank you for your question. You know, I think one of the things that's next, as I look at you and think about the conversations that we're having globally across CNN, is we need to do a much better, stronger job of taking advantage of our global teams in the field and getting them to think and do digital first, right? And we've made such great progress. But these big organizations, whether it's the International New York Times or whether it's CNN, where we've kind of had a tradition of doing things in one format, in one way, and all the teams and systems and practices that we've set up against that, we've got to start to make that shift, because between social and the digital landscape at large, the ability to get audiences where they are on stories that matter to them and using technology and platforms and formats to do that is extremely powerful. So what's next is we have to shift away from a broadcast mentality and shift away to a more user-centric mentality. How do we tell stories that matter to audiences, whoever they are and wherever they are? Any other questions? Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Didier.
I actually have two questions. One is regarding the subscription model which has been developed successfully by organizations like the New York Times or Financial Times. And is that something that CNN would at some point look at, or you're really in the free model in terms of audience?
Yeah, right now, you know, it comes up sometimes in conversation, but it's not something that we're actively exploring. Maybe one day it will be, but because of the scale and the breadth of CNN, and because of the way that we can do something on Snapchat or do something on CNN Arabic or do something on CNN International, we feel like we can reach the audiences and be able to make an attractive proposition for clients on the sales side.
My other question is that there is currently an initiative being discussed between Facebook and a number of big news organizations like New York Times, I believe BuzzFeed, and a couple of others about publishing their content on Facebook and sharing the revenue of ads around that content between Facebook and those news organization. I mean, how do you feel about it, and have you been approached as well by Facebook for this initiative?
Yeah, it's a good question. Have any of you seen this morning, have you been looking at the interwebs and seen the stories about full articles on Facebook? How many of you have noticed this? It's been something that's been exploding a little bit this morning with the announcement that Facebook will be working with some news organizations to do full text on platform. like they're doing with video. So sometimes at CNN we put native video in Facebook, and we've been experimenting with that, and the numbers are massive. Even for CNN, the numbers are massive. We might experiment with full text on Facebook. We've talked to some of our partners at Facebook about that. I have to say, honestly, it does make me a little nervous. We were talking about it this morning. It's a huge platform with a massive audience. And so as I sit here and talk about how we need to go where our audiences are, that's one way to do that, is by putting full text on Facebook. But you have to balance that with supporting the business and continuing to get audiences where they are that supports the core business. So it's a balance. We might experiment with it, but not today, not this week. Yeah. You're only allowed one question per person. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, it's a follow-up on Facebook, because I'm the readers editor for Gulf News. We had this whole debate where a lot of people were looking at moving comments, similarly, completely to Facebook. But then you have this whole discussion of handing over authority to Facebook and them being able to curb content based on their policies. They can go in there, stop your content if they want to. Is that a serious concern for a news organization like CNN, especially when you're looking at putting full content onto Facebook?
Sure. It just is. It's their platform, it's their algorithm, it's their secret sauce, and we don't know exactly what's in that stew. So you give up some control when you put massive amounts of content on Facebook. Now, you have to balance that with the audience that you can reach, which can be very powerful, especially on certain stories. So I think as CNN continues to do more on Facebook, and I would say as other news organizations continue to do more on Facebook, I predict the model that we will see, at least in the coming year, isn't going to be people putting everything on the platform, but thinking about, just as we thought about the Germanwings crash and how to capture the social conversation and use that to fuel some of our stories that we needed and wanted to do around that, we're going to start looking at Facebook as, oh, this story is going to be really great for Facebook. So we're going to put this native video up, or we're going to put this full text article up, because in this story, in this case, it's a bigger imperative to reach the widest possible audience than it is to drive traffic back to the core properties. I think that's what's going to happen. And some of that's already happening right now. Yeah.
I just wanted to get your feedback on the new live streaming apps that seem to be coming along, like Meerkat and Periscope. What's your take on it? Because for a news brand like CNN, with people out in the field, it just gives you an amazing opportunity to live stream from wherever journalists or reporters are. Are you exploring that avenue at all? Or?
Yeah, Periscope, I'm fascinated by. Who here knows what Periscope is or has used it? Handful of you. Yeah, great. Yeah, I think it's addictive. We've experimented with it a lot at CNN. We've done shows on Periscope from CNN Money. Some of our correspondents in the field have just been playing with it and tinkering with it and just doing short broadcasts. It does, and something like Periscope plays to one of the passions at CNN, right? I mean, it's your own personal broadcasting device. So the numbers that I've seen are still a little small, but the technology is fascinating, and we'll keep on playing with it. Is that it? Okay, time's up. Happy to talk afterwards. Thank you all for coming.